computer. Okay, I'm going to check and see if I've got some audio out there, and it looks like I do. And we'll see it. Okay. And I'm recording this. Yeah. So that the stuff that people miss, they can go back and take a look, and that way I can get all of you out of here by 8 o'clock. Now, what I'd like everybody to do once you're over in Canvas is just some housekeeping stuff to make sure we know what's going on. We had 3 uploads that were due tonight, and I had posted an announcement that listed those files that were due on the 6th. And then I also had sent out an email. So everybody should be on top of what they needed to turn in. And I'll go back to the syllabus here for just a second instead of the modules. And those are the 3 files that were due back from the 6th. Okay. Now, tonight, there is the Manelli exam and Pierce, the Pearlson, a case follow-up, and then a case quiz, and then another exam. And that's on chapters 9 and 10 in Pearlson, and then the Manelli chapter 1. So that stuff's all due by 6 p.m. I want to make just a minute to make sure that we're all on top of everything in terms of the and those of you who are going to come in late here they'll be okay, because I'm recording this and I'll save the recording. But the bottom line is that next week the group software project is due, and there are 3 files: an Access file, an Excel file, and a Word file. And they should be uploaded by the project, by the team leader. And of course, all of you have your teams. They were designated over there in the discussion board. And so that's all due on the 17th. Then a Manelli, and then a case follow-up, and a case quiz, and Pearlson exam 6. Now, on the 20th, which is a week from this coming Thursday, you've got one final upload in terms of databases, and that's the movie database that we worked on last week, any one of those. And what I'm going to do this week is, since we've concentrated so much on tables, we're going to take a look at a couple of databases, and we're going to talk some about queries in terms of their development and what we're trying to work with. So we'll see that here in just a few minutes. So I'm going to kind of shift this over now. Like I said, you only have one more database case to upload, and that's this one that's due the 20th, and that's any one of those out of that movie database that we were working on. Now, this week we'll take a look at a little bit more about design, and then we'll look at queries in the business sense of what we're trying to do, because ultimately we're trying to build a database with its tables and with its queries to take data and convert that to information so we can make decisions with it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit greater depth. The other is the business models exercise. We'll have that one. You've got business movies exercise, and I've given you some instructions on that. That's due the 24th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And I want to let everybody know, and I'm recording this, so I'm hoping The last two sessions of the class, the 17th and the 24th, are what we call plenary sessions, and that's where really we want all hands on deck. And so at least attending virtually. If you can get here to the city and in Oklahoma City, fine. If not, but it is a week that we want everybody here, and that I've got points assigned for that participation, and that's where I'm going to hopefully be doing some Q&A with people about what they did in terms of their group software project. This week, we were over and you had some readings on an exam over on Manelli, the first three chapters of that textbook, and then a case follow-up on from Perelson, and then a case quiz, and then an exam on chapters 9 and 10. And I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about the Manelli text. That's the one that deals with big data and those first three chapters. And the whole point is just to kind of give you a good overview of what's happening in IT. And now as I said last week, the two biggest changes that are occurring is the advent of what we call ubiquitous computing, and the other is the development of the cloud. And it's all of this data that we have that's stored on the cloud, or it's stored in devices, and the changes that it's bringing about are going to be very, 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 very fundamental. And probably in the supplemental lecture I'll do tomorrow or Thursday, we'll take a look at some of that. Probably, I would say the most obvious would be in the automobile industry, and how much automobiles have really just become platforms for software. In fact, a couple of automobile companies said they're no longer in the automobile business. They've mastered the engineering. Now it's a question of integrating all the software into the machines. And then we have this idea of the Internet of Things and all the data that's out there, and then all this data that we have that gets generated. How do we take it and put it into a format that we can use it? And the Manelli text is designed to give you kind of an overview of that. Again, the course is a survey. This is a survey course, so we could have an entire course on nothing but big data, because every 2 years we produce, right now at the rate we're going, every 2 years we produce as much data as the human race has produced in total. That's a staggering amount of information, a staggering amount of data. And a lot of that is business related. And so everybody, businesses, governments, people are trying to come to grips with what does that mean, and how does it work, and how can we benefit from it. It also poses some challenges, and those are addressed there in chapters 9 and 10 there in Perelson, especially the chapter that talks about information security. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like anybody else. I'm a specialist in the field, and my thing is really databases and is really database development and business intelligence, i.e. primarily around building dashboards. I'm not an expert in information security, and there are whole degree programs in it, and you could have we could have 6 courses of information security. If you want to take a deep dive, there are programs out there that cover that. There are a lot of good MOOCs out there, which are massively open online courses that people offer. We can go through a certification track and learn about if that's something of interest. There is a tremendous need for people out there. And I think if you follow the news at all, it's pretty evident that this issue of information security is really, really crucial. And it's important for us just as individual consumers. It's also important for us as citizens If you look at the controversies surrounding the supposed hacking of the election by the Russians, that's what 3 or 4 of the intelligence agencies say. Things that they're attributed to having done in Europe. We also know that the Chinese have been probing some of our systems. They believe it's either the Chinese or the North Koreans have been probing some of the software for some of our infrastructure systems. So when you talk about, weaponry out there today, people clearly understand that you can use information as a weapon. And probably 2 good examples would be the United States allegedly, and probably Israel created the Stuxnet virus, which went in and burned out the centrifuges in the Iranian missile program. And we also have had a situation where there's a lot of suspicion that the North Koreans, who've kind of been hit and miss on their missile launches, that they were hacked by the Americans or the South Koreans, and some software was filtered into their system to make those things blow up before they reach the altitude. The whole thing that they're trying to do is fly into an altitude. If they can get a particular altitude height, then they know that it's just simply a matter of the distance of the arc. And that's what's going on with them right now. And then trying to miniaturize a weapon that they can stick on top of an ICBM, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile. But all of this stuff of data dumps like WikiLeaks and all those things, these department stores and people getting hacked, identity theft, all of this is the bad side or the downside of this society in which we live. The good side is, you have more and more products tailored to your needs, more and more products that are interactive, etc. But it's one of the great challenges that we have, and especially around issues of privacy. That's a big one, and also in terms of just, if someone decides to hack your house, what all kinds of damage could they do? So the Perelson text, look, if they'd written it yesterday, it'd be obsolete, because we keep seeing the development of spyware, and we keep of malware, and no sooner do people come up with a way to combat it and deal with it than people who are hackers, either white hats, which are people who believe they're fulfilling some kind of function for everybody, like the guy that does WikiLeaks. He thinks he's a white hat hacker versus a black hat hacker, which is a criminal or is stealing money. And also, then you kind of have a breed of these people who are, I don't know what you qualify them, but it's very clear they work for a nation state or some type of political entity. And ironically, the most of the work that's been done is at the United States National Security Agency, and this latest big virus that got released out on the internet was a product they developed and got dumped out into the internet on one of the WikiLeaks. So there's a whole lot of that type of thing, and frankly, it for me, it's mind-boggling. And you can take a lot of steps. But almost everybody at some point in their life is probably going to be a victim of identity theft. So it's a good idea to have limits on your credit cards or have insurance on them. Be careful. And the truth is, most of us, we're not big enough a fish for somebody to go after anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. I tell my students, the undergraduate students, I tell them that they are prime targets. The reason is they don't have a credit history. And because they don't have a credit history, it's easy to build one around them. And so that thing of identity theft which is where a lot of money is made by criminals. They're after people who really don't have any kind of an identity. And that's usually going to be somebody coming out of college or college-age person who doesn't have a credit history, and so the history can be built for them. For the rest of us, they might try to take what they can out of our account, whatever we might have, but we have too much history there for anything to be reinvented. And if you've bought a house lately, all the stuff you have to go through to go through and get credit and go through and get a mortgage and all that business. And I was absolutely I was amazed at how fast the process worked. And this is the first time I mortgaged a house in a long time, and which is another story, which really nobody's business. But I hadn't financed a home in a long time. But to make a long story short, I was shocked by how fast it happened, and I was shocked by how much information they had. I mean, it was really unbelievable. Pulled up my entire credit history from the time I bought my first house when I was 21 up till now, which is a lot of data. And I was just in a state of shock when I saw all the information that was there that they had access to. So the challenges that we have with information security are really big ones. And I don't want to give it short shrift, but I'm just really not qualified to walk you through that. And frankly, I'd say if you're in a company or running somebody's company or you're running your own company, get the best protection you can get, and just have a backup plan in the event that something goes wrong. In most organizations, okay, the problem is not somebody doing some type of sophisticated hacking. The problem is usually a human being, like the guy that was at the NSA that walked out with a thumb drive full of data, just like the people involved in WikiLeaks. There is, and also that I believe it was person. In fact, I believe they were from Oklahoma who was working for the Defense Intelligence Agency that walked out with a CD-ROM full of data. People giving up their passwords, people giving up personal information on phishing when they get a phish through an email. It's the human factor that's usually the problem. And that, for example, when John Podesta, who was the chairman of the Democratic of Hillary Clinton's campaign, his email got hacked by the Russians, not because they used a really sophisticated type of program to probe his email. One of his aides clicked on a link and did one of these things where we need you to verify your information, and bingo. And so just a simple phishing exercise opened the door for all of that. And once the doors open, they're in the house, and and bad things can happen. So I didn't want to give any short shrift of that, but I certainly want to make sure that we talked about it a little bit this week. And let's go over and go into the modules and take a look at those. And I had some resources for you that as I kind of go along parallel with this. And again, the whole field of information technology, it's what we talked about at the start of the class, is information technology is decision centric. That is, how do I use all these computers and software to make decisions? And so we've got a few resources that I wanted to refer you to. One of these, and this will take you out here. This is an excellent New York Times article talking about the international CIS and all the new products that are out there. And this is from last year. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these products are still just in their infancy, and they're still being developed. And so we're kind of going through some of the growth problems with those, but we're going to see those get perfected. And so that's I think probably artificial intelligence is the one that's or something that comes close to it, is the one that's the most exciting. I figure by the time most of you are my age, the robot will come pick you up and take you to the rest home, you and your robot companion. It's coming. It's going to happen. It sounds fantastic to us, but it's it's just as real as it could possibly be. This is an article about AIG and their work with artificial and things, the Internet of Things, or IoT. And it's a nice little article. It talks about, it uses things like, vehicle systems to avoid vehicle transmissions. And they really are focused on automobiles and focused on delivery trucks. I think it's going to be a long time before I'm going to get on an airplane that's driven by, and I might jump in a Google car. I don't have any problem with that. But with an airplane, yes, the odds of an accident in an airplane are very, very low. But if you have the accident, the odds of you dying are very high. So there's always a flip side. But this is an ad posted by them talking about their work, and I think it's certainly it certainly is worth taking a look at that resource. And again, talking about this thing called the Internet of Things, and it's just hard to imagine how much it's going to change the way that we do business, especially when we have when we have products that are interactive. All of us have either an Android phone, or we have an iPhone, and when we interact with Siri, or we interact with the person whoever that is on Android. I don't know if they've given it a name or not. And Google, get me this address, or Google, tell me that. That's just the start of where this is all going to go. And for businesses, this is going to mean some real important changes. And I don't believe we're ever going to get rid of individual decision makers, but we are going to have to be careful not to get so completely inundated with data that we can't think. But that's one of the reasons that the IT really focuses on decision making and what we're after. Now, here's another, and this is Microsoft. This is about Microsoft, and they're envisioning this type of a future with all of these devices that are interactive and are they interact with the end user, and they're intended to be customized to your needs, and also to sell software, sell products, etc. So I have some good resources there for you to take a look at. And this whole thing of IoT and the Internet of Things is, we really have yet to even scratch the surface on where that's going to take us. And things like robotics, which are tied up with that, but just varying sensors in products, and having cars, for example, that will tell the manufacturer, tell a dealer, hey, it's time to change the oil. You're going to have the same kinds of things embedded in your clothing. Every device we have, probably everything we have, including food containers, etc., smart refrigerators. I know I'm throwing a lot of verbiage out there, but the truth is, who knows where this is all going to wind up. But what it's going to do is it's going to provide decision makers some opportunities to see in real time how their products are used, how they're purchased, and that is going to really begin to change the way we market, especially that piece, and in terms of understanding how people behave when they get a product, buy a product, use it, etc. So those are some nice resources there for you to take a look at. And I think the Manelli textbook is a good one. The key thing, he talks about volume, okay, and variety. Those are the two. I've taken a couple of courses now. Now, folks over in the hard sciences use what's known as R programming. You might some of you may be messing around with it. R programming is designed to be able to take data that doesn't conform to a nice table and convert it to something that does. And it's also designed to handle huge data sets. In business, we tend not to work with those. And when I took the course, I was just absolutely amazed with the stuff that they were doing. But it's designed for that. And then one of the other things I would mention is that because of this growth, we're seeing a whole kind of renaissance in terms of a lot of what I would call specialized programming languages that are designed to work with what we call unstructured data, and those are data that don't fit neatly into a table, or are not in a format that it's easy to extract. And that's why you Hadoop, map reduction, that tool is one that's out there. There are just so many of them. And if it's really of interest to you, I would encourage you. There's one place to go. I think Code School is a place on the internet. There are MOOCs, massively open-oriented courses, massively open online courses. Canvas offers a lot of them. Udacity offers some of them. They are usually put on by a university and they're free, or you can get into a certification program, or they'll take you through a specialization, like it's 5 or 6, 7 courses, and you can learn all about it. But the truth is, they will tell you by the time you've gotten through this, there are even more programming languages out there. And with data storage on the cloud, the other thing that's happening is we're seeing new ways to store data because of the volume requirements, and the ways that we've designed databases just are not going to be how things will happen in the future. And that's important for you to understand, just simply because these are some opportunities that we didn't know that we're going to see some opportunities arise that we didn't know were there. I mean, 10 years ago, who knew what an Uber was, or who knew what Airbnb was, or 20 years ago, who knew what a Facebook was, or a Twitter. And so that the Manili text gives you a nice overview of that process and how it works out. And we've done a little bit of work with that in terms of doing it. We did some work with Excel, and we saw how we could do some database functions with it, and then do some data crunching as well. So I want to encourage you, as you get into the Manili book, give it a good hard read, because it's not only get some stuff you're going to have some exams over, but it's also getting you thinking about what is happening and this wave of data that we have. And again, this course is about how do I take all that data and make a decision with it. And to just give you to give you a good idea of how people are honing in on this, I am absolutely amazed that when I do a product search, that with all of the ads, the banner ads and things that show up as I go out and do a search, because obviously somebody saw me and they started tracking me. And when I purchase something, I'm amazed at all the surveys I get and the depth of the analysis, the questions, how did you use it, etc. And so folks are mindful of this, and they understand how important this is. And I can't tell you, if you have a map, and I'd say this again, I told you all of this, I think probably the first or second week of class. Mapping is another one of those things that we're just now starting to discover. So if you're Lowe's or your Home Depot, you are doing a tremendous amount of work with mapping, for the very simple reason of you want to put your store in a place where people are buying or building or building homes, or are buying lots of new homes, because you're going to sell a lot of stuff for projects. So, and if you carry a certain type of good, you want to know what's the income level of people, what kind of marketing psychographic do they fit, and I think we've gone over to Esri and looked at Esri Tapestry, and we're just now seeing with location analysis, for example, how fast these folks now can make decisions, because they can get to the data so much faster, even analyzing traffic patterns. And I think I mentioned to you, I took one course where we did a location analysis, and I got done in 45 minutes what it took my dad months to get done when he did location analysis. And I had traffic patterns and the whole bit, because the data were there to get. So we're just now seeing, we're going to see just an incredible revolution of, we're at the point now where the chips and the computers are what they are. The devices are what they are. They're getting miniaturized. Now the question is the stuff they produce, what do we do with it? And how do we monetize it? And how do we use it? And so, and I think if you want to see the two bellwethers of that, certainly I think Facebook and I think Twitter and Amazon probably would be the three bellwethers of how that's all happening, because I'd say Facebook, certainly Amazon. If you want to say, is there anybody I could follow to see how this is happening? Amazon would be the one, and because they're the ones who most understand how to marry the virtual world with the physical world. And that is, they sell stuff online and they got to get it to you. Okay, it doesn't no good to sell the stuff and then it doesn't arrive at your door. So they've got to have that linkage and how that all works out. Well, enough of that. And again, just these items that are due this week, and here's some resources for you. And when I do the follow-up tomorrow, I've got some more, or Thursday, I've got tomorrow or Wednesday follow-up lecture, I'll have some more things I'll want to take a look at. As I said before, we've been doing some work with tables. Part of it, I'm doing a lot of work with tables, and we had one. We had that one last software piece, database piece to upload, and that's this one that's due on the 20th. Okay, and that's the movie database. And you remember we had those 3 files that we worked with them. And so what I've tried to do is focus on just kind of how database is put together, okay? And then, the 4 components of it, and kind of get comfortable navigating around Access, because the stuff that's in Access is what you're going to see in just about any database. We covered a little bit about entity relationship diagrams, the idea of a primary key and a foreign key and linking tables and that type of thing, because the tables are the heart, and data formats, data storage, why the type of data I'm collecting and how I store it. And I think in one of the supplemental labs, I showed everybody how to do a lookup table, how to populate a table with drop-down menus so that we had control. And so I want to kind of move us out of that and move us back up for a minute to a larger kind of scale, and want to take a look at a file. And so let's go up into the files area there, okay? And we want to look for Northwind Traders, and we'll go down there, and the file is called Northwind Traders. Okay, now there are actually 2 files that you're going to see, and first is the Northwind database index. It's a PDF file, and let's download that to your desktop, because I want to let you see it. Okay, and I'm going to save that. On my desktop, and it's the Northwind database index. Okay, so you'll want to save that down to your desktop. You're not going to upload it or anything, but it will probably be a little easier for you to work with. So I'm going to close this off for a moment, and then I'm going to diminish my browser and go down and find that Northwind's, find that file. Here it is. Here's the PDF file. Now, this is a nice little file, because it's going to show you, this is the mental model, if you will, or the design of Northwind database. Now, Northwind database is a product that was put together by Microsoft to let people see how they can utilize Access, and the reason that I cover Access is it's like I said before, it's a good model of what every database has, and it has 2 important elements. One, it allows you to see what we call the back office operations, okay, what a database administrator gets to do, sees all the tables, how everything's put together, etc. And it also allows you to see the end user piece. And that's what gets embedded in these business cases that we've been doing in the Miller book. And so as you go through here, and let's click first of all on the tables. And they're going to start off, and really what's going to happen is this is really what got produced before anybody ever opened up a file and began to populate it. And this is how the thing was built. This is why I've said before, IT is different from computer science, and it's different from computer engineering in that it's decision oriented, okay? Computer science is about computer languages and the structures of data. Computer engineering is about the physics and of a piece of equipment. IT is for the business person, and it's important because it's about how do I take this stuff that gets produced and make a decision with about. So in this Northwind Traders, the first thing they had to decide was what tables do we need. And we've talked about that there are essentially two types of tables. One is what we call the dimension table, which is really information about some attribute, and then what we call a fact table. And we talked about that idea of the star schema, where we have a fact table and we have a bunch of dimension tables that feed into it. A dimension table would be like a table of states. And I think in one of the when I was showing you guys how drop down menus are done, how we do lookup tables, and so we create we go beyond that. We create the snowflake schematic. How we take all of these different tables, these dimension tables, and we combine them into a fact table, which becomes a set of records, a list of transactions, a list of people, a list of products. It's going to be people, products, it's going to be people, products, services, and transactions. Those will be the three types of fact tables that you're going to use or run into. The dimension tables will depend upon what's important. The fact table is useless if you don't get the right dimensions. And that's why you as a business person in any company, the business people have to be the ones who drive the table, because that's where you start. And everything's got to be strategically important. So the categories of their products, that's got to be important to them and for their strategy, their customers, their employees, order details, orders, products, shippers, and suppliers. So you can see this is a sales database, and they've got all of the important dimensions in here, okay? Now, then they move into the categories, okay, and the table categories, and notice they have some called column, some called relations, and some called index, okay? Now, I don't want to get too far afield with this because, as I've told you before, this may seem confusing to you. Hey, there are dimension tables and there are fact tables. From an operational standpoint, that's what's there. But if you in the mind and the nomenclature of a database administrator, there you've got these tables of columns, relationships, and indexes. And we've talked about the indexing, which is basically how does the machine go fetch data for you, okay? And in fact, people who take who go through a computer science program will learn. They'll take a course called data structures, and that is how do certain types of data tend to stick together, because we want the machine, when it does a search, okay, to go and go where the data are clumped, because that's where it's going to find the information. How does Google do it? It's simple. Google does this. They not only index, but they index how you and I respond. When I run a database, when I run a search, okay, and I choose certain links, they're going to record that. And that goes into their index of what I responded to. Now, on the other side of that, and this is where this is why I talk some about what we call recommendation engines. On the other end of that is the process whereby people are buying this is Google's AdSense, where people buy placements, okay, to come up in the first 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 results when somebody does a search on Google. And if you're a small business and you don't get that right, it can be a real killer for you. If you get it right, it can be fantastic. And that's why there are courses now in a lot of more advanced marketing programs. Kids are coming out now who are marketers are learning about search engine optimization. and you know, how do I make sure that I get the right person hitting my link and coming to me, or how do I get my link embedded in the right place, and all of that stuff. And look, that I took a course on it, and it was and by the time it was through, my head had exploded, the eyes were in the back of my head, and I said, this is way farther, a deeper dive in this than I could ever want to try to do. I would really have to spend a lot of time. So, but that's where marketing's going. So you got these indexing, you got relationship tables, okay, and then you could see they identify the types of the primary keys and the foreign table and the foreign key, and then they've got the columnar tables, which are really more just like more pure towards a dimension. But this is all planned and thought out before anybody moves a bit or a byte, okay? And this is something that a business owner or a company division or whoever ought to sit down and get this all worked through. The truth is, these things tend to get a legacy, and they tend to become incremental, okay? Meaning they were done initially by people and they put some stuff together, and then someone came along and they added some more, and then they added some more, and then they added the ability to put in different devices, and pretty soon you have a mess on your hands. And you have data anomalies, you get research, you run a search, you get all types of anomalies in the data. You've got stuff, reports you can't produce. It becomes a nightmare. So this is a process that really needs to be done. So this is the planning piece. Then they show you the customers table and what all is in there. Now you could get the same report if you went into Northwind Traders and went into the database tools and clicked on the report. Here are the employees table. Why do we have these? Again, this is about decision making. And I can't emphasize enough to you this. You may not be real comfortable working with Excel or Micro or Access. Computers may make you feel queasy, but look, they're a tool designed to serve you. The IT people are there to serve and support you. Without you, they don't exist. And they're there to support your work in terms of decision making. So if a company installs software that just doesn't do anybody any good, pretty soon somebody's going to have to step forward and say, hey, this isn't working. Or if you can't get the types of data results that you want, okay, or if the system doesn't give you the freedom to do regular reporting and then do those kinds of what if analysis where you say, well, what if this or what if that? That's how this design, and again, it's information, it's decision centric, and I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, the order details table, again, how it's all put together, products, shippers, and suppliers. Now, I'm going to close this off for a moment, and let's put your browser back up. And just so I can blow your mind a little bit more, or make you think he is totally out of control and insane, go down here where it says Oracle Retail Model PDF. Look at that file, and let's download that to our desktop because I want to show you. Now, the Northwind Traders one is nice, but the people at Oracle ain't fooling around. So let's save this. and put it on your desktop so it'll be a little bit easier to work with. And it's putting it there because you may want to take a look at it. This is a reference release back from 2009. So it's old. It's old enough now that Oracle doesn't care that you can see it. You won't see the 2017 version unless you want to pay them the money to let you see it. And what they do is they tell you this is their retail model. They have one for distribution, firms that are in the distribution business. They have models built, database models built for all kinds of businesses. That's what Oracle does. And they're exceptionally good at building databases tailored just to a particular industry. They can even tailor it to a particular company, but you can see this is at a level of detail that's really pretty incredible. And they try to talk with, they try to get business owners and end users to understand this is a big toy and play with it well. Look, you know, you wouldn't hand the keys to a Ferrari to a 17-year-old who just gotten their driver's license unless you're a billionaire and it's your kid and you love them, because they probably will wrap themselves in the Ferrari around a tree. But if it's an experienced driver on a circuit, they're going to take that Ferrari and make it sing like a beautiful voice. So Oracle wants to make sure if you're going to use their product, use it and use it well. And so this is, as I said, this is a 2009 model, but it gives you a good idea of how they work through the decision-making process. And they really literally almost walk a company through their thinking about their strategies, their objectives, their goals, primarily their strategy, their mission, their strategy, their goals, their objectives, annual measures, key performance indicators, those kinds of things. So I want you to see this, and I felt like until you'd seen kind of the practical side, you wouldn't be prepared for what's here. Now, I can say this: Oracle, SAP, CIS, any of these companies that are vendors, you don't buy and use their product unless they're absolutely certain that you know what you're doing with it. And I appreciate that and I admire it. A long time ago, I spent about 10 years working as a consultant on for an outfit called the Duran Institute, and Duran is one of the three gurus of quality, along with Deming and Crosby. But the Duran Institute worked a little bit different kind of approach. Here's what they did: if somebody called their office in Chicago and said, "I'd like you to come out and talk to me about your quality program," and Duran had, their approach was quality starts with top management and works its way down through the company. And they would ask for a $250,000 deposit, non-refundable, and they would say all of the principals and the business owner have to go through our 8-week school. If you won't come to our school, if you don't all come and go through our school, we keep the money. If you come and go through the school, then we're ready to work with you. They were serious about their program, and they had a program that worked. And I would say this: the proof is in the pudding, because one of the clients they took on when I was there was Ford Motor Company, which today is the #1 brand in automobile sales in the United States. People buy more Fords than they buy anything. And a lot of that is because the Duran Institute, I think, got them started in the right direction in terms of their quality and what they do. Oracle has the same approach, and everything here, how this is all set up, and the physical model. And the physical model could be anything to just simply an entity relationship diagram to them talking about, okay, well, here's the server that we'll be using, and here are the devices we know it's used and how they connect together. Again, this is circa 2009. I'm certain it's far more complex than it was, but this is something for you to see. Now, here's an entity mapping table. and it shows you the entities, the tables, the views, they map, how everything maps. This is all planned before it's ever executed, okay? So when we design a database, that's like I said last week, we sit down and design a little entity relationship diagram, and then you determine how it's all going to link up. So this is again circa 2009, but it does give you an idea of how detailed this is when it's done correctly. Okay, so I'm gonna close that off there for a minute, but I want to let you see that it's nothing that you have to turn in, but certainly let you see that folks are serious about that. Now, we've looked at the Northwind database, Northwind database traders at their index. Now, here's the access file, the file itself, Northwind traders, and let's download it to our desktop. Now, again, you've done all of the uploads that you have to do. So now we're in that frightening part of the where we're just learning something. And so, but I do want to have do want to make sure I got you to the point where you understood what you're looking at. I think we're there, and we're going to save the database as an access database. I'm going to save it. Okay, and I'm going to put it on the desktop. And you won't be uploading it, but it's Northwind Traders, and we're going to take a look at it because this is kind of a model that that Microsoft has put out there. Most of the people that use Access tend to be entrepreneurs, smaller companies, or individuals that work within a company, and their Access database, they'll work with it at desktop level, but then they'll be feeding or they'll feed into the stream, or the stream will be feeding into them. And I'll explain that what I'm talking about there in just a second. So let's go ahead and enable the content, okay? And this shows you just what's typical of a fairly well fleshed out database, and that's this Northwind login. And so you can log in as one of those people and just click on that. And then what they will show you, what this is just a kind of a little station where you can go and take a look at, okay, status. Here are the active orders. Okay, this is a dashboard of sorts. And with this, you can also click over and view the inventory, the orders. Here's some quick links. It gives you a list of things that need to be reordered and the quantity. So this is a fairly decent dashboard. The KPI here, the key performance indicators are, okay, what orders are going on today, okay, what stuff do we need to reorder, and what's going on with what's the latest with sales, shippers, employees, all of these key tables, and there are links over here. What this is a form. Take your cursor and go up to the top and click on design view, okay? And you're gonna see that this is a pretty complex form. Now, as you look there, you're gonna see, let's start with the detail over there on the active orders, okay? The thing on the left, okay, is a label. The thing on the right is what we call an unbound text column. What do we mean by that? An unbound text column is a place where I put data, or I manipulate data, or both. Okay, so it's a different type of critter. So I have a label, and then I have the place where I manipulate data or I display data. You see, that sounds a whole lot like the formula bar and the cell in Excel. Exactly. All machines that do computation have two pieces. One where the work gets done, and the second where the result gets displayed. It's no different than when you and I were back in grade school and we wrote on a piece of paper, maybe, or whatever, 1 and 1 equals 2, 1 and 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3. I was showing my teacher the formula and the results, okay? Or as I remember back in 4th grade, I had a teacher who loved to torture us with multiplication tables, and liked to have you stand up and she'd give you a shot at telling you what's 23 by 97. When you're a 4th grader, it's a little intimidating, but she would let you go to the board and you learn a little math here or there. But here is the gray over here. That's the label, and here in the white cell, for example, on date and order date, that is the unbound text box. That again is where we put data, or we manipulate data, or we do both. And so that's down at the design view. Some of the other things you'll see at the design view are more like for the design piece, the little dots, the lines, that's lining stuff up to make it pretty and all of that. And you can also change the shading and all those types of things. Let's go back up to the form view, okay? And you'll say, this is a form. Yeah, a form, again, is an object that's used to populate a table, okay? Or we can use it to access tables, queries, etc. Now over here in the online, over on the quick links, we can go view the inventory, okay? Because we want to know what's going on in the inventories, how's that doing? And we can close that one off. Then we'll go back over here and we'll say, okay, what's the inventory to reorder? How much do we need to reorder? What orders are active, okay? And then just the kinds of ongoing view. These, and if I look at these, if I say, okay, what are my key performance indicators? They're this. Have I got enough stuff in stock? Okay, well, I check that through the product. What's going on? What have we got going out the door today? Or what's been ordered? And then how are we kind of sitting overall? That's that third one, the quick links, okay? And so when you hear people use those terms like key performance indicators and all that, those are a fancy way of saying what's going on with my business. And that's why I would say when I work with business owners or folks and they can't tell me the 5 things they need to know every single day, then I tell them, you kind of got to go back and do some rethinking about what you're doing here. And it's a little frustrating to them. But what's the point of me answering a question they don't want to know the answer to? Okay? There's really no point. And there's no point in me giving them data that aren't related to their decision, okay? It's a lot like what all of you are saying through your minds when you sit through these classes with me. When will I ever possibly use any of this? Let me give you an answer. I don't know, okay? I really don't know. But I do know this. You may use some of it or all of it at some point in time. And so it's my obligation. I'm kind of like selling insurance here, folks. We all are in business, in these business programs, because I can't guarantee you that you'll have to understand the elasticity of price, okay? Or what do we mean by inelastic pricing structures? But I can guarantee you, I can't guarantee that that'll ever happen, but hopefully if it does, your brain will go, oh, elasticity of price, the change in demand based upon the change in the price. Do I have a variabling good? Do I have a good that changes in that way? So when the price of it goes up, the demand goes down, or when the price goes down, the demand goes up. And if so, how much? If I'm in the construction business, I guarantee you right now, I watch everything that the Fed does because I know that when the Fed changes those rates and the money's not as cheap as it was last week, it's gonna come to me downstream. It's gonna come to me downstream in the form of what mortgage lenders will do for people who want to buy my home, and it will come down to me when I go out and I'm purchasing, I'm borrowing money to build. A lot of people don't know this, okay? I'll just tell you it was kind of interesting so you kind of understand that. If you build homes until you get to a certain size and longevity, most finance companies or banks or people that loan you the money will limit you to maybe 3-4 homes. and then you sell those, and you do some more on consignment. If you go out here to these car dealers, like the one across the street here from BGCO, most of those vehicles are on consignment. And if they're not sold in a certain amount of time, they're moved somewhere else. And if they're not sold there, they're moved somewhere else. That's the whole idea, is to move the product. Well, enough of that. But you could see we have this little login that lets me go right over, and we'll close it off. Okay, and then we can start to take a look at this database. And like I said before, this is a fairly well fleshed out database for a sales organization. Now, we can see that we've got all access objects, okay, and you want to have that there, and you'll see the tables. As you scroll down, you'll see the forms, okay, and you'll see the reports, and you're going to see something called macros, which are auto executable. That's a macro is all macros are recorded keystrokes. That's all they are. And then we have some modules where they've done some work here down at the Visual Basic level. So you'll want to kind of play around those. And again, this is not a class about that. You could go pick up VBA Code School and some other places. And truthfully, you can go buy a book off Amazon and learn about VBA. And what you're going to find out, unless you're a database administrator or developer, you could spend a lot of time tinkering with them, and when maybe you could better spend your time doing something else. But that's up to you. If it's of interest to you, good. But you'll notice all of the different objects and the iconic view that we get with them. The reports have got one icon. Same thing with the forms. Same thing with the tables. And the one thing here that they've not done is use old school naming, like customers. Old school people like me would say that name should be TBL, customers. Or down customers extended should be QRY, customers extended, and the whole thing packed together, simply because if you ever worked at the DOS level, you learn to do that, and you learn to skip having to do underscores to link names together. Let's just kind of take a deep dive on this database, and we're able to now. And let's click on Database Tools. And you can see that we have a database documenter. We've already looked at that in terms of the index, okay? So we've seen that documenter, and it will basically give us all the document, how everything's all linked, everything's all connected. That's really over there in that index, but if you wanted to, you could take the documenter, print the thing out, and have it for yourself. And here's the thing. Eventually, somebody's going to come on and say, well, we need to collect data about X, Y, and Z, all right? You have to be asking yourself, okay, if we do, what are we going to get out of this, okay? The theory of marginal utility is applicable to IT, and this in the chapters, the one thing that the Perelson book does, I think, quite well, is get you thinking about the cost of IT, okay, and how to cost out. They even walk you through the whole how to put together a business case. They walk you through the time value of money, using it to put together a purchase or an improvement program, the finance of it, okay. And we spend tremendous amounts of money, more and more percentage, a higher and higher percentage of funds are spent on IT every year. And people keep saying, what are we getting for this? And in fact, and I had some links, and we talked about this at the start of the course, what are we getting in terms of GDP for all this enormous investment in this infrastructure and all the money on programming and training computer science and all this stuff? What are we really getting for our money? And there are people out there who are trying to grapple with, are we measuring the right stuff? Are we measuring the wrong thing? Is information a different kind of resource than land, labor, and capital? Because the classic economics is land, labor, capital, okay? Then we have this thing called information. And we know it's not the same, because we know if you go today and you look at you do evaluation of the Fortune 100, 80% of their value is tied up in intellectual capital, not stuff. Now, if we were taking this class back before electricity was invented, that's when I was in grad school, you would have found that intellectual property is not a big deal. The stuff we own is what is the basis of the valuation of our company. Okay. And so that's one of those challenging things that we have. Well, we have all of these tables. Okay. And let's click on the relationships. And what you're about to see is a mess of spaghetti. Watch what happens. You go, oh my goodness gracious. Yes. This is one to show you if you want to have, again, this is a tool that can be adapted. It's supposed to be a template. Okay. So if you wanted to populate it and use it for yourself, you could as a sales organization. Access has some other little templates that you can open up, you know, if you want to keep track of your silverware or, you know, what grandma sent you or whatever, you could do that. You know, a database can be as complex as you want, but you could see how complex this is with all of these relationships. And you'll notice that we have a high level of one-to-many relationships. Okay? That's fairly typical of a at its heart a star schema, although this looks a lot like a snowflake type of design. It kind of borders on it, but it really is a star schema because it's got some fact tables that everything feed into. And you could slide the you could take the slider here and pop it back and play with these and start to see. But the table names, the nomenclatures, will often give you a clue on what are the fact tables. And that's what you always kind of want to be asking yourself. So let's look at this first. Customers, let's open up the customers and we'll close that off, relationships. And let's look at the customers and look at that table. This is a fact table, okay? You say, well, how do I know? Well, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, different fields that are unrelated until you combine them into one record. And then you have a customer. Let's look at employees. That's another fact table. It's a list. Now, here's a dimension table, what we call inventory transaction types. Then here's another fact table, inventory transactions. So say you keep going to dimensions and facts, dimensions and facts, dimensions and fact, or attributes and facts. Yes. Okay. That's what this, here's one on invoices. Okay. Now I'm going to click on the invoices for a second. And let's come up to database tools. Okay. So click, we have the invoice table open. Click on database tools and come over to this thing that says object dependencies. Click on it. And we've talked about this before. There's no big deal here. This is one of the reasons I like Access is, look, what you and I are getting to see here is what the database administrator gets to see. Okay. And this is how it all makes some kind of sense. Now, there are two ways these dependencies work. Objects that depend on me, okay, stuff that's downstream, or objects that I depend upon, stuff that's upstream. That's just, and that's really all there is to it. Now, if I'm looking at this invoices table, I know that the invoices table is dependent upon another table, the order tables. So I'm pulling data from one table to another. In other words, this invoice table works like a lookup table of sorts for the orders table. And if you open up the orders table, you're going to see the invoice is in there, and that data. So that gives you a sense of how these are all pulled together. Now, the question is, do I have the right tables? And we'll close all of these. And that's something, again, that's driven by your key performance indicators, and then what is it within those that we need to know. And they typically boil down to who buys from us, who supplies us, who works for us, okay, and how and what transactions occur, okay, and that kind of puts it all into perspective. And then we try to craft the database to work around. Well, we have an order status table. That's an important one. Is it new? Is it invoiced? Is it shipped? Is it closed? Tax status, another one. And so the company, now Microsoft is trying to say in so many words, if you're going to have a database, sit down and work through what tables do we need, okay, before you start building tables. It's easy to build these things and fill them up and then have a bunch of data stamp. But remember something, if you're working at 50 or 100,000 records, this doesn't be today with the storage costs being near zero. This doesn't become real money until you start talking about 250,000 records. But you can get there real fast if you're a sizable organization. So you want to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck. So you don't want to have a bunch of tables sitting around there that are legacy tables that really aren't of any use, because sooner or later you're going to get some anomalous data. You can see it's pretty self-explanatory as we move down. And we'll close this off for a minute and we'll go back up here. And it's not, usually what will happen is, especially in large companies where storage costs and moving the data through the pipeline, they're a big deal. They'll go through and you'll have some legacy reviews where people say, we really need the data in that table. How do we get rid of it? And this is part of that ongoing process where we talk about normalizing data. Think of it like this. A table ought to be like a paragraph. It has one complete thought. Okay, you remember that from English. And a table ought to be just about one thing. When it starts becoming about multiple things, it should be something I harvest with sets of records, i.e. a fact table, if you will. Well, we'll go down here, and we've talked about that in table construction, but I want to go down and I want to now talk a little bit about how constructing queries, because the query is the next step, and this is where the rubber meets the road for you and me. So go to Customers Extended, okay, and let's look at the design view of that query for just a few minutes. We'll talk about it a little bit. Now, where we're at here in the design view is what we would call the graphic user interface, and we'll manipulate this on down so we can see the whole set of fields. Okay, and I think we hit the bottom. Okay, may need to come down just a little bit more, give it a little more. Now, when we run a query, okay, we're doing one of two things. We're either flailing about just saying, oh, I could run a query, and what if I did this and did this? What would I get? That's called a serendipitous query. That's called a shot in the dark, okay? The other is it would be what we would call I call it a periodic query or a repeatable query. It's one that I run every day or every week or every month or every year or every quarter, whatever. But I do it on a consistent basis because it's something that feeds into my KPI or feeds into my monitoring of what's going on. And so I'd want to look at this and ask myself, okay, what is this thing designed to do? Okay, what's it supposed to do for me? And we'll take these and we'll open them up a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to take this first one, and you'll see we're using the customers extended. We're using the customers table, okay? And we're going to use a file name, and we created a file name there, and we're using the IIF convention. And I want to get this. That's the field. And we're getting their last name. In fact, I think if I can get copy the whole thing, I'm going to put it on the notebook pad. And so what we're going after is we're using the IIF function, okay? And we're getting their last name, their first name. We're getting the company. And if it's null, then we go in and we put in a blank, okay? So this is just, we're getting an information table, and we're just populating this query by just getting, this is an extended set of information about our customers. And so let's just go up to the data sheet view, and we'll go up here, okay? And here's the table, and I'm going to move the shutter over for just a second. You can see it's a pretty complex table. It is indeed, this is a view. And you say, why do we call it a view? And let me repeat it again for you. A view is basically a set of code, okay? Think of it like your password, or think of it like a code you input on something to open up a door, or a password to your email. SQL or Oracle SQL or version of it, or any one of these database languages are designed to do that. Open up the table, let you look at it, get what you want, and what gets saved is not the new data. What gets saved is the code, okay? The physical data are still there till you go in and you change that table if you have the authority to do it. And authorities are built in at different levels. All of you are working out there. You work for somebody, and they give you the ability to do a query. They don't give you some abilities. For example, when I go in Banner, I can go in every one of you. I can see your academic transcripts. I can see your grades. I can see where you're from, all kinds of stuff. But I cannot do some things. One of the things I can't do is enroll you in any course except one that I'm teaching. So I can't go and just change your schedule because I don't have the authority level. And a dean does, because the dean's the dean, or Dr. Martinez, he's the director of the MBA program. They would have the authority to do that, okay? But I don't. You would be the only person who has the authority to change your address or anything like that. So it's a view, but the table doesn't get changed unless you have the authority. So let's look at this for a minute. We've got their contact name and how it's filed. They have an ID and the company. And notice that we've had these companies, they've decided to use letters, okay? And then we've got the first name, the last name, okay? Divided up. And this is called an extended table because we have a contact name, then how it's filed, okay? And then somewhere we took that file and we split it in half. In half meaning we split it into a first and last name, okay? You say, why would we do that? Well, we might want to have a mailer. It might be easier to run some queries. We might want to find out, are there some people who are related at these different companies that maybe they have a contact with? Who knows? Then we see their job title. We've got that. Then we have their business phone. And then also here's a little column. This is a column for comments, or pardon me, for attachments. Maybe they send you a picture of their product or who knows what. Notes, is there a web page? What country are they in? What's their zip code? Here's a state, province. And when I did the supplemental lab and we did lookup, and remember we did the whole thing where we went out and found the 50 states, imported the table, then used it. So we had a nice, neat little thing where a person could, in that table, they could see OK means Oklahoma, AR means Arkansas. Yeah, is that AR Arizona? AZ's Arizona. See, I'm even going nutty with it. AZ's Arizona, AR is AK's Alaska, AR's Arizona, AL's Alabama. Yeah, look, if you're inputting data, you don't want to think about that. And the people you'll pay to be inputting data, they don't want to think usually, period. So, you want to make sure that you got that right. So, and then we've got the postal zip code. So you can see what we've got with this customer's extended table. And we have a whole much more data about them than we did in just the regular customers table. Let's flip this just back for a moment and go in and click on the design view. And I want you to take a look up at the toolbar, okay? And I want you to notice something. If you look up at the toolbar, you're going to see some breadcrumbs. Okay, so what are you talking about? If you look up at the top in the toolbar, you're going to see that, first of all, what type of query this is. I'll bet any one of you could tell me what type of query it is, because the select button, the select icon there has gone hot. That's designed to give you some visual guidance to say, look, you're doing a select query. Okay. Then if you look over at show hide, okay, this will tell you what you're looking at or not looking at. And that's over in the table names. Okay. Now, if you wanted, you could look at a property sheet. Okay. And that shows you the properties. So there we be. Now, you'll notice there's some other types of queries: make table, append, update, crosstabs, or delete. There's a union, there's a pass-through, and there's a make, and then there's a data definition query. We can do a lot of work with queries, okay? And they're designed to do certain types of things for us, and that's why we're kind of doing a dive deep. Here we're doing a simple select query and saying, okay, pull this stuff from the customers table, okay, and do a search for us, and get these type of data, and we have the fields, and then we want this stuff in ascending order. And then here we see the customers field, and you see a customers dot asterisk. That's a wild card. It says get everything. So these first two are queries that we've written. They are an expression, okay? And you'll see that file as colon. It's an expression, just like we've messed around some with mathematic expressions. These are Boolean expressions. Then so it's saying, okay, we're going to pull and call out some of this data in a particular format or way, and then let's just get everything else in the whole table. That's why it's called customers extended. Okay, so it's a select table. And we're going to close this off for a minute, and we'll come down here and we see, let's look at employees extended. Here's another one just like that. Okay, and when I go to the design view, I can see the same thing. It's a select query. I'm using the employees table. You'll see again here, we're doing an expression. We're doing a Boolean expression. And the same thing with employee. And what we did is we basically had an algorithm we'd established up there in the customers extended. And this time we're doing employees dot asterisk, so we get everything from the employees. So we're using some of the same code. Okay, and that's one of the things is anytime we can use a template, especially for a code, we're going to do it, and we want to make sure that we do. And we want all this information about these employees. We wouldn't run the query unless we want to know who's working for us, what's their web page, how long has it been, are there any notes about them, do we have any attachments, where are they from, etc. Okay, and what's their employee ID, all that good stuff. How do I reach them? So we have the employees extended query. Okay, so so what we've done with the query is by creating the expression, and we'll go back to the design. So what do you mean? Just to make sure, here's the Boolean description. file as, then the IAF function. That's how we've extended it. And then we also did the employee name. And then we did that IAF function again. So that's how we extended the employees table. You said, in other words, are you telling me, Dr. Harmon, we took that table and we built on it? Yes, that's why we call it an employees extended. We have reformatted the data in some ways that will be meaningful or useful for us. Now, don't want to freak you out, but let's just go. If we're going to take a deep dive, let's go down and let's look at this patient. And here is the SQL. And I tell my undergraduate students, many of you would be well served to stay in the dorm on Saturday night or go over to the lab and work on this, because you won't be on a date Saturday night anyway, which I don't think they take kindly to. But or if you're bored, you say, I'm bored, I don't have anything to do in the summertime. I used to, as a kid, my mom would say, go outside. But I learned after I'd mowed the lawn enough times to never tell my mother I'm bored, because she always had chores to do. But you could see, here's the SQL. And SQL is a command and control language. Here's what's going on. It says select, and we're going to do a search. And if it's null, okay, we're going to get a blank. Otherwise, we're going to get the last name, and then their first name, and then the company's first name, the company, and then we go back and we have that is null. We have a fallback in the is null. If there's something null in there, if it's missing, we get a blank. Now, if we're smart, we can save ourselves a lot of code if we have tables that don't accept an incomplete record. But that's for another day. And then you can see that first expression here. It ends with the employees, and it's from the employees table. Now we do, and then we order them, okay, and we put them in ascending order, so they alphabetized, okay. And here's the second expression, and that's what's going on there. We'll go back up to the view, and so we have that data about the employees. Now, let's close this off, and we'll change, and let's go down here and take a look at order subtotals. In fact, let's do a little bit of work. Let's look at the order price totals and open it up, and it will give us the order ID and how much was spent, okay? Now, if we want to see what tables we use to get this from, all right, we'll click on the design view, and here we are. And this is the order details extended table, and this shows us the order ID. Okay, it used an alias here, order ID, and the order details extended table. And then we got the price, and that's the extended, the price total, and that's the extended price. And we did a sum and a group by. Now, I want you to notice something. If you take a look up at the top, okay, in the toolbar, you're going to see the familiar thing on the far left is select, but over on the right-hand side, you're going to see totals, okay? So we did some grouping and some summing. That's how we got the subtotals. We grouped and we summed. And you'll see that down here on the order ID. We grouped them by order ID. And then we got that subtotal because when we did the grouping, we got the subtotals. And again, the ribbon up top, the toolbar is going to show you that. That's one of the nice things about all of these products now have those built in to give you a sense of what you're doing or what you've been working with. Now, again, let's go back down. We can take a look into the SQL view. Okay, and I'm going to take this code and we'll look at it here for a minute. Now, fortunately, most of you will never have to write any code. You'll just be able to do drag and drop, manipulate an icon. You might have to do a couple of expressions or something like this, but here we're going to select, okay, the order details extended. Okay, that's the table. We're going to get the order ID. That's the field. Table's on the left, the field's on the right. The dot shows us they're connected. As order ID. That as is an alias. So we're going to call it something different, okay? Then we're going to perform a function. The mathematical functions, we're going to sum the order details extended. Okay, we're going to sum that. Okay, dot the extended price as a price total. So we've performed a sum function on it, and we saw that when we looked up in the toolbar and we saw the little sum that little sum symbol had gone hot. Okay, and we're getting it from the order details extended table, and then we're going to group it by order details extended dot order ID. So we're gonna group them. So we summed them and we grouped them. That's how we got the subtotals for those. And we'll go back up and we'll take a look at the view. And there we are. And we have them in alphabetical order or serial order. We'll go back down to the design view. Okay. And we didn't, you'll notice something here. We didn't ask it to put it in ascending order. You say, well, okay, why did it? Well, it did it because it put the order ID in ascending order. Now, I want to go back down to the design view for us. I want to show you something. All databases by default will start in ascending order, and they'll start with the first object queried, and then they'll work their way across. That's how they work. So they start with the far left, okay, and they'll put that in ascending order unless you tell it to put it into descending order. It will put it in ascending order, and then it works to the right. So the nice thing is because that default's built in, you don't have to do that with the code or mess with it. So here it is to show the order IDs. And you say, okay, what else can I do this? Well, what I do with this is pretty simple. I'd probably take this and I'll close this off, and I'll probably take this and I can export this out to Excel, and I can do some work, some analytical work with it, chart these data, use, I could export it, I could chart it, I could go out there and put it in a conditional format, whatever I want to do, okay? Because I've used the database to get the data, now I can go back out into Excel and play around with it. Now, there are tools out there. There's SAP, there's CIS, Oracle has some of those. But if you're just working at a desktop level, or you don't have, or you're wanting to work with some data, you can always just export the stuff if you have the permissions and work with it in Excel. Okay, and we can just stick it out there and then play around with it and see what we've got. We can look at the order subtotals. Open that back up again. Now let's look at the order summary. Okay, and here's another. And you'll see we've got some problems here. We've got some order dates, and if you'll notice, I have some missing data. Stuff that's been ordered, but apparently hasn't been shipped. Okay? Now, this is where you can get really crazy as a manager, because if you get a report like this that lands on your desk Monday morning, you're asking yourself, saying, wait a minute. What have I got going on here? Okay, I've got I've got an order date and an order ID, no subtotal, no taxes, no shipping fee, and it's new. What have I got going on here? Okay, then here's another. What is that? Then I'm going to have to go back and ask somebody, why have I got this? Now, there may be a perfectly good reason for it, but I'd want you to think through is, why would I have okay, a record of order summaries, and I don't have I have a date it was ordered, but a date it wasn't shipped. What could this be telling me? I don't have enough product. Somebody dropped the ball down the warehouse. Who knows? And these are the kinds of things where when you run a report like this and you start to see, and these are anomalous data. Now, Microsoft let them in here, okay, to let you see what a report would look like if you've got some data anomalies. It may be that they've made the order, but you just haven't pulled everything to ship it. And since you haven't shipped it, you haven't billed them, okay? Fair enough. You'd ask yourself, if I got a whole bunch of these, okay, then what am I really looking at and why? And so I would probably want something that's going to give me, these are all new orders, okay, but I'm going to want something that's going to give me a sense of, you know, what's a projected date, for example, when I intend to send this out. That would be a decision rule of some type. Now, we can go down into the design view of this. Let's do that. And now we start to see where I talked about connecting these together. Okay. And you can see we've got the order status. Again, we talked about the star schema. Manipulate those around a little bit. And here it is. We've got the orders table, and we have an order summary, which is the order ID and then the price total. We have an order status, status name, and those are primary keys. Feeding, well, the order price totals, that one is a still star, but it's got that orders table as a junction. The order ID feeds into the order price totals, and you've got then the order status down here at the bottom. Okay, if we go in and look at that SQL, we're going to see all of that complexity. So we'll close this off for just a second, and we'll want to take a look at some more queries because we've got some different ones down here. Okay, and here's the one that we have products, transactions. Now, come down to the very one, you'll see the one that looks like it has two circles there. And let's go to the design view on it. Okay, you see, where's the GUI for this? Okay, this is where we are utilizing what we call a union. Okay, if you remember back to high school, junior high, whenever, where you learned Boolean logic, you learned about, you know, A and B, and the intersection of A and B is where they match up. And you remember I talked about left joins, inner joins, and outer joins. There's also such a thing called the union, and the union is when I take two sets and put them together. Now, in Access SQL and Oracle SQL, when I do a union of two tables, I combine the two tables and I get rid of any duplicates. Okay, I can use I can use a I forget exactly the I think it's union all, where I'll have to go back and look at it. I apologize. In Oracle, I can get a union, I can keep the duplicates, okay? And so and you can see we're gonna get everything from the product orders and everything from the product purchases, and here's that union, okay? And so we're taking everything in both tables and putting them together. Why would we do that? Well, we're trying to get some type of connection between these two things, and it would make some sense. I've got the product ID, okay, and I've got the product purchases, product orders, and product purchases. So I'm wanting to know, what did people purchase? Okay, simple question. What did they buy? Well, and I'm going to get that information from the product orders table and from the product purchases. Well, how do you know that, smart guy? It's simple. It says from. Okay, that's how hard this is. Okay, it's really not that difficult. These languages are pretty simple when you stop and think about it. But I'm combining everything from those two tables. Okay, and we'll go back and we'll take a look at the view, and here it is. And we have some order dates. I'll have to pop that out there. The company, and so we have the product ID, we have the order date, the company name, the transaction. And if I was really just wanting to know about, and we see kind of a data anomaly, come down here to product ID 56. Notice something, we have a little bit of an anomaly there because the order date is in a different format than the rest. It's giving us a date and time stamp, which is okay, but we'd like to have some consistency. But I'm going to come back into this go into the let's go down to the SQL view, and if I wanted to, okay, I could clip off this and do another select statement and and create a union with another table. I could do it. I don't know what the default is in Access, but I could connect as many tables as I want to get the data view that I'm after. But in this case, on the product IDs, okay. Now, this is something where I'd take it. If I want to do some more analytics with it, I'm going to take this and I'm going to export it. And let's export this over to Excel for a second, and we'll browse and we'll put it on our desktop. And then we'll diminish this down, and we'll diminish down our browser. And let's see if we can find that out there. Product transactions, you should find it. It's probably going to be, should be in an Excel file. And now it's in a place I'm familiar with and comfortable with. And here you say, well, what would you do? Well, probably, given what I'm looking at, probably the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put all of this into a pivot table. The reason being, the pivot table is going to give me the ability, pivot table, and I'll click Insert Pivot Table and click OK. I'll put it in a new sheet. It's going to give me the ability to get the database look, but mix and match product ID versus product date. We'll do this. Let's put in product ID, and I'll put the product ID into the columns. Let's see. Oh, that's a lot. Let's put the column ID into the rows. So move it over to rows. And let's put the order date. Let's put the order date down here in the values. And it's just going to give us a count. And so I have now a simple count, okay? And here on row labels, I'm going to put product ID. And then let's see, I want to take those order dates and I'm going to put them into the columns. There we go. Now I have to move this pivot table, and I'm gonna hide. I would have to hide this, but you can see as you scroll over, this starts to give you a picture. In fact, take your cursor and go down to the far right hand side and zoom it down, okay? And then scroll over and you'll start to see the pattern. And you could start to look for clusters of cells or tendencies. What you've created here is kind of a scattergram. Again, kind of get a feeling of how's this stuff falling. Again, close it off and you don't have to save it. But again, we want to make sure that we use the analytical engine, i.e. the Excel file or Excel or a product like it with this database application. Now we've worked through pretty much all of these, and they've all have been practical. They've all have been select queries, okay. And so we haven't seen any queries in here where we have done extending a table or creating a table or anything like that. So what's happened here is these tables were all created in a design view and then populated. You say, well, how are they populated? Well, they're populated with a form. Let's come back down here. We looked at these forms before, and now we see a whole lot more forms than we've ever seen before in one of these databases. And that's because we have a form, okay, for just about every single dimension or fact table that we're after. And we have all of these forms for inputting inventory, or the reorder form, login dialog, order details, order list. We have all these different forms. Let's click on the order details and open it up for a moment, okay? And here and again, like any of these forms, I can do a free text search, okay? Or if I want, I can do a record search, or if I want, I can insert a new blank record. And this shows us order 30, what we did. And this is how we're recording the orders and how we're populating those tables. So what happened here was the tables were designed, okay? Then the forms were created, okay? And we didn't use any queries to create tables. You can use queries to create tables or to update tables or to append data to a table, but the designers in this database chose not to do that or have not had to do it yet because the tables were extensive enough or the forms are designed well enough that you don't have to do that. And when you're not having to run queries to update or that type of thing, but you're doing it through a form, it's a lot cleaner process. And you could see all these different forms. And then they also, and let's look at the subform here, the supplier subform. I'll open it up for a moment. Again, this is just a subform that fills into the supplier's form. Here's the supplier's detail. And you can see that, but where I can put a picture, notes, all kinds of data and information. Startup screen. And there's a little startup screen, even a little form for that opens up. Now, I'm going to go into the design view on this. Okay, you can see, again, we can customize and do what we want to as far as that goes. Now, I want to close this off. I want to close this also. And we're going to come down and we're going to take a look at some of the reports. And you've heard me say it before, I hate the report function in Access. It's tough to work with, and the authors, the folks at Microsoft did a nice job of designing this so it looks nice and pretty, okay? And it has all the customers. Looks like the customers are all alphabetized, I would assume, by their last name. That's what it looks like. Although this record, I don't know how she got in there, but I see. Okay. No big deal. Customer phone book, employee address book, employee phone book, invoices. Let's open that up. This will give us a report without a filter. Okay. There's the design view. You can see, you'll see, as I'd mentioned before, labels, and then this is a unbound textbook, and it has, you'll see, an expression in it. We have labels. Now, these little jewels down here that are kind of interesting. There are some things called modules, and there's some things called macros. And let's just go to the design view of it for just a second. Okay. Now, this is an auto execute macro, excuse me, meaning that it will just execute on certain operations. Okay. Now I'm going to close this off for just a second. Now let's close this. And let's click on create. And let's click create blank form. Okay. And at the top, you're going to see some things called controls. You're going to see a text box. You're going to see select. You're going to see a button. Click on the button and bring it down here. If it's going to play nice with me tonight. There's the form. I guess it's not going to play nice with me tonight. Well, anyway, here's the label I put in here. Okay. And if you want to see what's in here, here are the form properties. Okay. And I can manipulate that process around all that I want to. Insert images, do all kinds of things. I want to insert that control button. And I'm going to do this again. I'm probably going to be down at the form design. Let me go down to the form design. That's probably where I needed to be. And I'm going to play this. I'm going to build an event here for a minute. Yeah, the macro builder. Well, let me walk you through this for just a second so you can see it, how it's done. Click on create. Click on form design. When you're in the design view, I was in the blank form, so idiotically, I didn't go down. Here's a command button. Take the button down, okay? And I can build an event. So right click that. And I'm going to do a macro builder. Okay, I'll click OK. And on this form, it's going to say, it's going to give me a choice of things I can do. Now I'm going to click open table. And it's going to give me a drop down of the table. What table do you want to open? Okay. And what type of view do you want? And if I want to add a new action, I do that again. And I'm going to do this on the table name. I'm going to get the customers table, and I want to see it in data sheet view. And I think let's do a, let's just keep it in data sheet view. And then data mode, we want to edit. No, we're going to read only. Okay. And then we'll run that. and it'll give us the table. And then we just name that, and so we've executed it. Okay. Wanted to let you see that so you could see macros, and you can play around with them a little bit. You're not going to break anything. But again, it's just it just is a way to automate some things, and that really is what we were looking at when we were messing around there earlier, when we opened the whole database up. And we'll close this again, and I'll show you what we're talking about. Close the database again, okay, and then we'll open it back up. Open Northwind Traders, and we get this little login which auto executes. It's a macro. He said, how do I know? Well, the auto execute macro down here is gone hot and it's red, and then I log in as whatever employee I am. And then I go where I wish. This also is a nice thing for you to see because it mimics in a very rough scale what we would call a recommendation engine. Okay, and so it's recommending what do you want to look at. It's recommending this to you. No more when you go into Amazon. And they say, would you like to look at books, records? You have that big long menu thing. And then they'll have stuff below that say people who bought this, bought that. Just so you can see it, and rather than me just sit here and gab about it, let's go back open our browsers and click a new tab. And let's just go over to Amazon online for a minute. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, this is a form, okay? I've clicked into Amazon. You say, what do you mean? Well, let's look at the drop-down menu they provide me. All of their departments, okay? Now, I can dive down now into books, okay? There's also some other stuff going on here, and that is they're trying to sell me some other things, and they want to know, how about your Amazon, today's deals, gift cards, you have anything you want to sell, sign in, get your lists of stuff. Yeah, you don't have anything in your cart, you sluggard, you haven't bought anything from us yet. And here's Prime Day, and here's stuff that they're selling. Now, they're going to have, okay, these icons are very much like that form we saw in Northwind Traders. And when I click on this, it's going to take me over there, and it's basically recommending these products to me. Why? Well, the vendor paid them to put this here, or they have the vendor called and said, we've got a whole bunch of inventory. We need to get rid of this stuff. Will you run a banner ad out there? And okay, yeah. And do you have a deal of the day? Sure. And then, of course, they're selling Amazon Echo, so you don't even have to punch into the computer. You can just call Amazon. You can tell Amazon Echo, Amazon, I need some new pants. Give the size, the color that you want, and give you some search results. And again, then even below here, some more information in the form, and even in English. You want this in English, you want Spanish, how do you want it? And let us help you. Again, this is a form, very much like that one that we just looked at with Northwind Traders, that recommends or guides you to particular places. Why? So they can lead you around like a nose. Now, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to click all, and I'm going to click appliances. Okay, and then I'm going to put, let's see, it's the summertime, so I'm going to put, well, how about, aren't they nice at Amazon? They've already given me some suggestions about a barbecue grill. And do I want one that's electric? Yeah, I'm going to do a barbecue grill. And aren't they wonderful people? Because they're going to show me all these that they have. Here's the results. Okay. Now they need to fix this because my gourmet grilling. And they have product recommendations. This is another form that pops up. And as I scroll down here, they're giving me all kinds of, here are the customer reviews. They have nice pictures. And this is really nothing but the results of a query. And gee, they've got 30 pages of them. And they also have barbecue grill superstore. If you're really serious about this, we'll take you over there. Of course, the barbecue superstore gets paid. That has to pay Amazon for the link over. Here's some savings on grills. Here's a Phillips smokeless grill. Enjoy it. And boy, look at that. Free shipping to Oklahoma. They know I'm in Oklahoma. Aren't they nice people? And so this is a recommendation engine, same as what we saw when we opened up Northwind Traders, just this is on a much larger scale. So we'll close this off for a minute. Now, I'm going to go back into Northwind Traders, and we have looked at some of these queries. We've looked at the reports, and the reports will tell us a lot about what's of interest to us, as well they should. Now, I'm going to close this home off. Let's look at this, and we should have some KPIs. And I've got two kinds of reports, or three going on. Here's some just legacy data: customer addresses, phones, invoices, customer labels. Now here's a KPI or a decisional report: monthly sales. Okay. Now it will give it to me by category, by product. And remember when we've talked about the analytical cube, okay, this is where we can do the slicing and dicing, okay? And I can look at the sales by product, monthly, quarterly, yearly. I can take these reports and dump them over or print them out and look at each of them. And really what I have here, if you look, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sales reports. I've got 3 sales periods. So I really have 15 reports. And this is where I'm slicing and dicing that cube I talked about, and I have that JPEG over there of the analytical cube, because I'm saying, okay, how deeply do I want to dive? Now, I've got month, quarterly, yearly. What's missing? Weekly, daily, hourly. With high-speed computing, cloud computing, the power of these databases, I can I can have sales by the hour, okay, and track that if I care to. And there's a point where the data become almost incomprehensible. And I'm going to close this off for a second, and let's open up a new tab, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. So go back to your browser and open a new tab, and let's go over to Yahoo Finance. This is something that folks in the finance people haven't figured out yet. Oh, they know that, but sometimes. And let's see, I'm gonna do Walmart. You say, is this another one of these databases? Yes, it is. It's even going to give me some pictures. Now, if I want, it will give me different ranges of times, and the more compressed, if I look at like intraday trading, it's all over the map. If I look at it over a 5-year period, it starts to smooth itself out. So that's one of the things we have to be a little bit careful when we work with these, that we don't get too crazy. Now, in addition to this really being the ability to look at 15 reports, I've got even more than that. I've got 15 times how many of her products I've got. So now I have 15 times, I don't know how many products are there. And I also have 15 times the number of products there times the years. So you can see I have hundreds of possible ways to look at this, okay? And I can put these sales reports and I can put them in my category, country. I can begin to mix and just generate all types of sales reports. Now they have some product category by month. They've done some of that work for us. Product sales by category, product sales by total revenue. Again, these and by employee. Again, these are things. These are reports are where I would want to where I would want to go ahead and throw them back out into well, since they're in report form, they're going to be usable. But there are a couple of here's one that's very curious, and these are the top 10 biggest orders. And let's open this up. Now, why would I be concerned about this? Well, it's pretty simple. I want to know who are my best customers. Most of the time, 20% of the people in a company do 80% of the work. Most of the time, 20% of my customers provide me 80% of my sales. And most of the time, 20% of my customers provide me 80% of my problems. Okay, and that's the 20-80 rule. And so in this case, I'm wanting to look at these biggest orders because I want to go and talk to these people, or I want to make contact with them and make sure that they've been taken care of. And I'm also going to be curious about, when did it occur? Okay, because I've got the invoice number, I've got the order date, I've got the company name, and then the sales amount, and they're nicely done. And I want to, and again, this is one of those KPIs. Who are my best customers? Who are my top? Who bought a slug of money from me? Bought a slug of stuff from me? It would be these people. Well, I'll tell you what we've done here. We've gone about 2.5 hours, okay, because we started a little bit about 5:30 or about 20 till. So I'm going to close this Northwind Traders off, okay, and I want to take a minute, okay, and I'm going to go back over into Canvas. And we're just going to take a few more minutes, and then we're going to call it a night because we've gone, and then I'll have a supplemental lecture and then another supplemental lab. So we're going to get our time in. And I appreciate everybody hanging in there because we've gone hard and we've gone fast with this. Let me recommend to you that, if you're really interested, that you take a look some more at the Oracle retail model that's there, because I think it has a lot to show you the kind of level of detail that's there. Now, the other thing I would recommend that you take a look at would be the Northwind Traders Index, so you can kind of see this, how it's put together versus this model that they put here with the model that Oracle uses, and their template for doing stuff in for retail operations, and they have them for everybody. And so that was to let us take a deep dive and see how we take these entities, pull them together, and so you can see. And again, this is circa 2009, but it's worth saying that you would want to take a look at it. Now, we're going to do, I will do some work tomorrow or Wednesday, doing a supplemental lab, and we'll look at some other things, and we'll also do a bit of a supplemental lecture so we get some time in. I'll record those as well. But I do want to appreciate those of you being. Let me see who all I've got. I got 7 of us here. Colin, Michelle, Taylor, Yang Ping, who is train 12, I don't know, and train 8. Whoever you are, welcome, and glad to have all of you here. Thank you so much. And like I said before, we started a little bit early, so we've got in about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or maybe 2.5 hours. And then I'll have a supplemental lab and a supplemental lecture. Before I go, though, and again, thank you, all of you, for being here. I don't want to forget, let me scroll this up here to the, and we go back up to the modules, okay? And scroll down here. Next week is that plenary session. Now, what we'll do, and just so that you're prepared next week, I'm going to have an opportunity to go back and take a look at some of the work that you guys have done, because some of you have done some really, really good work with these case follow-ups. We'll talk a little bit about them. I also want to take a look at the group software uploads. So if you're a team leader, you want to be here, and if the team leader is not here, you need to let them know they need to be here, because I might have some questions for them, and I can unmute them. But we'll take a look at those, and then we'll see the team leader then. So, and that's a plenary session. That's all hands on deck. We want to have everybody here. And then finally will be the last, and that's the business movies exercise. I gave you some instructions and to do a little more database building and play around with it, and then a place to upload. And we'll talk about those, and that'll kind of, that'll end the course. So we're down to that point now. Now, one other thing I want to say this is, I know sometimes when you form these teams, and I am watching the discussion board, so I'm trolling through. If you're getting abandoned and it's you alone, shoot me an email. I usually know anyway because I can see the activity. Shoot me an email, and I understand that, okay? But I'm hoping that from what I'm seeing, people are communicating and all that business and pulling things and getting things pulled together. So that's what's going on. But that last week also, I'd like everybody here. It's a plenary session, and this is one of these things that our accreditors ask us to make sure that we know that you're all there and you're all engaged, and that would be pretty much it. So I thank you so much for being here this evening. And I'll stop the share and then stop the recording, and then look forward to the supplemental stuff I'll do Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, whatever. And I'll do a little bit more extension on the lab, pardon me, on the lecture, and then a little bit more in the lab. Thank you so much. And remember, next week, we'll do a look at some of your case analyses, your follow-ups, and I'm going to look at those, some that I think look really, really fantastic, really good. So I'm not going through all of them. I'll choose some that I think look really fine, so you could see what some of the good work some of you are doing. Appreciate it, folks. Have a good one, and I'll see you next week.